So let's do the chanting straight away before some meditation in the Dharma Talk. Be mindful, be aware, be happy. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sammasambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sammasambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sammasambuddhassa. Buddham. Hang on a second. Can you hear me now? Yeah, you can hear me. Oh, good. I don't know why it went. I got muted. So we'll start the chanting again, but keep recording, Leanne. No problem. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sammasambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sammasambuddhassa. Sammasambuddhassa. Buddham saranam gacchami. Dhammam saranam gacchami. Sangham saranam gacchami. Dutayambi buddham saranam gacchami. Dutayambi dhammam saranam gacchami. Dutayambi sangham saranam gacchami. Tatayambi buddham saranam gacchami. Tatayambi dhammam saranam gacchami. Sam saranam gacchami. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the positive potential I create by practicing the 6 paramitas, may I soon attain enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the positive potential in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Through the positive potential I create by practicing the 6 paramitas, may I soon attain enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. May all sentient beings have happiness and its causes. May they be free from suffering and its causes. May they never be parted from the happiness beyond suffering. May they abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment to the near, and aversion from the far. I shall cause this. Great compassionate Buddha, please inspire me to be able to do so. Reverently, I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind, and present clouds of every types of offerings, actual and mentally transformed. I confess all of my negative actions accumulated since beginningless time, and rejoice in all the virtues of all holy and ordinary beings. Please remain until cyclic existence ends, and turn the wheel of Dharma for all sentient beings. I dedicate the virtues of myself and others to the great enlightenment. However innumerable all sentient beings are, about to save them all. However inexhaustible my delusions are, about to extinguish them all. However immeasurable the Dharma teachings are, about to master them all. However endless the Buddha's way is, about to follow it completely. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Ayata Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhi Soha. Tayatam gati gati paragati parasamgati buddhi soha. Tayatam gati gati paragati parasamgati buddhi soha. So now we can get ourselves comfortable for meditation practice. Initially, we're going to release whatever tension we have in the body that we can release. So bring your mind, or firstly, gently close your eyes, lips gently touching, tongue resting on the upper palate in the mouth. And bring your mind to your body. Starting at the tips of the feet, slowly work your way up to your shoulders and then down to the tips of your fingers and then back up to the top of your head. So let's do this in silence just for a minute.
Everybody just keep meditating. Andrew lost lost internet, and he's coming back in. So just keep meditating.
Okay, so I'm back on. I'm sorry, guys. We're having problems with the internet today for some reason. So I think hopefully arise during the meditation or any mental activity, don't cling to it. Don't grasp at it. Don't try to forcefully push it away. Just refocus back onto your breath. If your mind becomes dull, then wake it up a little bit by refocusing more brightly on your breath. So let's practice like this now for a couple of minutes. So we'll keep now just offline. And now you can feel really pleased with yourself and fill yourself with universal love and kindness. Radiate this love and kindness now outwards, initially to your loved ones, your family, your friends. May they be happy and free from suffering and be peaceful. And gradually we'll start to radiate this love and kindness out further and further. Now radiate to strangers. May they also be happy, free from suffering, and be peaceful. And now also include those that you may regard as enemies. May all of these three types of people, from our own perspective, be happy, free from suffering, and be peaceful. Now radiate outwards to include all of those living beings that live around your area, whether they live on the land or in the waters, fly through the air. And further still, to include all of those living beings throughout your whole state or county. And other states and counties throughout your whole country. And other countries throughout the whole world. Further and further now. Have your loving kindness pervade throughout the whole solar system. And the galaxy. And the whole universe. And throughout infinite space. At the same time, be present here and now to recite the dedication prayer. Due to this merit, may I soon attain the enlightened state of the Buddha, so that I may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious bodhicitta not yet born arise and grow. May that born have no decline but increase forevermore. And may the precious view of shunyata, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline but increase forevermore. So we're having some fun and games with the internet today. But that's such as life, isn't it? I just have to keep my eye on the, what do you call it? The thing for the internet. It's over there. And it's normally a blue light when it's good connection. But we have a green light, which means it's an unstable connection. And of course, unfortunately, the orange light came on earlier. So I've learned something today. I didn't know the different colors. So I've learned something. I've got to keep an eye. If it goes orange, it means I've got to hook back in, and you guys have to be really patient, okay? So as you know, we're talking about the 6 paramitas, or the 6 transcendental perfections. We've already spoken in fairly good detail about generosity, generosity, morality, and impatience, and then enthusiastic effort. And we're talking about the concentration right now too, the parameter of concentration. And last week I spoke about the giving up attachment to distractions. And we'll continue that today, finish that today, and then move on to the last class probably on concentration before we move on to the wisdom aspect. Okie dokie. So distraction, we have attachment to distraction as mentioned. I wish we didn't. You know, think about the distractions. Obviously you don't have to say them out loud, but think about how you distract yourself. There's quite a lot, isn't there? You know, it could be to do with the main things we desire, couldn't it? You know, we could be thinking about eating, drinking, sexual activity. We could be thinking about the fame or fortune or sleeping or all of these things. We're distracting our mind on these things or with these things rather than being concentrated. And especially when we engage in the formal practice of meditation, we should at that time especially make a good effort to release ourselves from this attachment to being distracted. I've written myself a few notes. So we should let go of worrying about, like I mentioned, food, clothing, what other people say or think about you. That's another distraction, isn't it? I think we worry about this a lot. Worry about what other people think about us. Don't worry about that. You could say you should only be concerned with what you think about yourself. You should, if ever you get down on yourself, remind yourself of your good qualities. As I always say, if we get too much ego, too much pride, arrogance, then remind ourselves of the faults, what to adopt and what to abandon. Obviously, the faults are abandoned. Need to work to perfect the good qualities, such as these paramitas, such as the generosity, the morality, the patience, the concentration, and the effort to practice all of the paramitas and develop the supreme wisdom, you know. So I think we're still hooked up good. I'm still keeping a little bit of an eye on that thing there because I don't want to be talking and then not realize that I'm offline. So once again, I apologize for the disruption on the internet today. Then instead we should meditate, you know, rather than thinking about what people think about us, rather than thinking about things such as our food and clothing, even though they're necessities in life, we should instead meditate. Be mindful of what the object or whatever object we have for meditation, such as the breath, be mindful of the breath. Be aware when the mind wanders away from the breath, and then be conscientious to replace the mind back onto the breath. We should work to purify our mind. not worry about so many other things. You know, sometimes I get asked questions through Messenger or emails and things like that. I get asked these questions, that they're valid questions. They're, you know, because us humans are very curious, but so often my answer is actually, I can give you the answer to some of these mundane or worldly questions, but really what you should be doing is purifying your mind. You know, some questions come through related to comparing Buddhism to other traditions, other religious traditions. I say, don't worry about that. You know, unless you're working to develop true understanding, don't worry about that, especially if you're, you know, talking with people from other traditions that may be saying something negative about Buddhism or something like that. Don't worry about that. It just encourage them to practice their tradition, and then let's practice our tradition. And maybe then you can talk about the weather or something. Or your favorite hobby or sports, or how nice nature is, or something like that. Don't worry about the religious teachings between the different traditions. You know, so I get quite a few questions like that, but go back to purifying the mind, putting these parameters into practice, practicing the Eightfold Path, developing the immeasurables of love, compassion, empathetic joy, and equanimity, you know. So that's what we need to do. And we need to really be conscientious towards ourselves with our practice as well. Okay. The next thing is concentration arises more naturally when we are meditating in solitude. Either that's in a quiet place in your house or somewhere in nature. All of the people, if there are other people on the retreat, they are also practicing. Everybody has the same or similar goals. And or if you're on solitary retreat, that's even better, you know, because the concentration is more likely to arise more naturally, you know, and easier. As does non-attachment to distraction. So it's much easier for us to deal with this attachment to distraction when we're practicing in solitude. Otherwise, it's pretty obvious, isn't it? Otherwise, you could be disturbed by outside noise or other people that maybe live in the house or around you somehow. Or if you, let's say you're meditating in the park even, that's nice for nature, but there are other people in the park too. So maybe find a secluded place if you do that, okay? Going back again to seclusion, isn't it? And to practice secluded, or you could say away from the possibility of distractions. Be kind to ourselves that way. I'm going to, you could say, recite a song that I wrote called Everything. And this is actually inspired by the Vajrachitika Prajnaparamita Sutra. Okay, so, or the Prajnaparamita Vajrachitika Sutra, which is known in short form as the Diamond Sutra. But actually it's the Perfection of Wisdom Diamond Cutter Sutra. And it's called a diamond cutter because how do you cut a diamond? With a diamond. So the only way for us to perceive and to realize this wisdom is to achieve this wisdom or realize this wisdom for ourselves. Because it's actually unthinkable, inexpressible. We call it wisdom gone beyond. And so we need to practice this or develop this concentration to be able to utilize our abilities, our concentrated abilities, and ability to develop insight into the nature of reality, to be able to do it. Okay, so everything is like a flicker of a lamp, the life of a flower. Think about that. The flicker of a lamp. So let's say you have a candle and then you have a flame. The flame, of course, can go out. Or even if it doesn't go out, it's not staying the same, is it? It's always flickering. Even if there's no wind, maybe you're breathing in and out, slightly flickering, not staying the same. And this is like all phenomena, not staying the same. So how can we be attached to that? You know, the distractions are not staying the same, whether it's coming from the subject, from ourself, from our own mind, or the object that we're perceiving at that time, either through our sight or our hearing, and so forth. The life of a flower. Think about that. The life of a flower. Maybe to us, when we have, like those flowers that actually do live quite long compared to other flowers, but even they're changing moment to moment to moment to moment. Think about before that flower came. There was just maybe the bush with the dirt and all of the other materials. Then a little bud came. Then slowly it turned into a flower. Then, of course, the sun shining on it, drying it out. Maybe the wind drying it out. Eventually that flower starts to become very dry and eventually turns into compost. Unless, of course, we picked it and you brought it inside the house because you like the look of it. Whether that's good or bad, it doesn't matter. Just an example. So everything is like a flicker of a lamp, the life of a flower, a star at dawn, a dewdrop in the sun. So a star at dawn, what happens when the sun starts to come up? That star disappears. So everything is like that. Constantly changing into something else, becoming something else. And a dewdrop in the sun. In the morning, if you get up early, you can have a look and you can see maybe there's a little bit of moisture on the grass or on the trees or the flowers or anything. And then, but in the morning sun, eventually it dries up and everything is like this. Everything is like the changing of the tides, lightning in a summer cloud, a bubble in a stream, a phantom and a dream. So everything is like the changing of the tides. You have the tides that we call low tide, mid tide, the tides coming in, the tides going out, high tide. We have all of these things, but actually it's just constant change, isn't it? Like even if you're not at the beach now, then you actually can think about that, maybe from the TV or something, some memories. And it's never staying the same. The tide's always coming in, a little bit here, a little bit there. When I walk on the beach, I tend to walk right near the water's edge. So I have to be careful that I don't get wet sometimes because it's changing all the time. And sometimes I have got wet and, cold feet in the winter or something. Anyway, so everything is like the changing of the tides, lightning in a summer cloud. So when you have thunderstorm and then lightning comes, it's very quick. It doesn't last. And so once again, everything is like this. Even though many things, may last longer than lightning, of course, but the change is constant, just like the lightning, constant, changing. A bubble in a stream, or a bubble in Diamond Sutra, it says, a bubble in a fast-moving stream. Think about that. So as the stream or river even goes down the mountainside, it goes over different depths of water, different, maybe rocks or logs or something that are in there. And then it may get a little bit of air into it, creates a bubble. But how long does that bubble last? Because the stream is continuing, isn't it? A bubble in a stream, a phantom and a dream. You could say that the phantom and a dream, this is like the awake state and the sleep state, isn't it? Constantly changing. Think about when you have a dream and it feels so real sometimes, doesn't it? Maybe, let's say you have a scary dream or maybe not of a bad memory or something, and then you wake up, freaking out, and then you calm yourself down and go, it's just a dream. Even when we're awake, it's like that, So just remind yourself of that, okay? So sometimes, like the parable of the Buddha gave of a man walking into a dull lit room. In the corner, he thinks he sees a snake. He has big fears of snakes. But as his eyes get used to the dim light, he realizes it's just a rope coiled up or curled up. So a phantom in a dream. So often we perceive things, to use an example I use often, perceive things with our limited ability to perceive clearly. For instance, you may think you see the ocean, when actually the only part of the ocean you see is what you're seeing there. You're not seeing the whole ocean, are you, at that time? But we think we see the ocean. Then, of course, we look at the sky and we think we see the sky. But actually, maybe you're just looking at a cloud. Or even if the sky is clear, you're looking at the atmosphere and all of the different changing atmospheric conditions that maybe create a blue sky or something like that. But actually, that's not really sky, is it? It's just atmosphere, and you could say a representation of infinite space. So maybe that's a good teaching on emptiness there. And so the rest of that song talks about not being attached. So everything comes and goes, no space, no time. Nothing knows everything. So no space, no time. These are just names we give to things. Nothing is coming or going. Nothing is coming into being or disappearing from being. It's just constant change, constant impermanence, you know. Everything, let it go. The path. No one owns anything. So think about that. We tend to own things, don't we? We own ourselves, own our own opinions, own our own distractions. So that's the reason I wanted to recite that song or poem as it is today. So our distractions and our attachments, we don't own them, but we think we own them through our habits, through our constant reinforcement, you could say, of our habitual tendencies. So let's work to undo these. And we can do this with the meditation practice and all of the practice of all of the other paramitas. Okay, so, and of course, they will be totally, the attachment, along with the ignorance that it comes from, that it arises from, actually, and the aversion that comes along with it as well. These will be totally uprooted with the sixth paramita when we perfect the wisdom. But right now, we're working, as I mentioned in previous classes, using the example of a bush or a tree. We're chopping it down to be able to get to the root at the moment, okay? And the practice of concentration is essential for this, or the development of concentration, I should say. Okay, the next bits are, we need to have a willingness to free ourselves from these distractions, okay? Really a willingness from the point of view of allowing ourselves to do so, but also making the effort to do so. So our willingness to free ourselves from these attachments increases the more we practice, and the more that we bring our mind to understanding the impermanent nature of all things. The pure perception in our faith will also increase. The faith in ourselves to be able to practice, the faith in the Buddha, the teacher, and the faith in the Dharma and these meditative methods that he taught and that he encouraged us to practice. Okay, eventually it will become a habit to practice this and to practice really well. Okay, it'll be spontaneous for us. Wouldn't that be nice? I often say that when I mention things like that, you don't have to try anymore. It just becomes natural to do so. Just like you know, those parts, I'll use the example of a river again. When the river, there's nothing impeding its flow. It's just going now, has so much momentum going down the mountainside. Same with us. We have so much momentum once we start to practice more naturally, you know, after making the effort. The next things are negative afflictions will also decrease So those things that we need to abandon, our faults and the afflictions, will start to decrease quicker and more naturally. The good qualities will also more naturally increase quicker. But it's very difficult if we are busy, isn't it? If we're continually getting wrapped up in our old habits, then it's much more difficult. And our progress on the Dharma path is much slower in this case. Don't worry if this is what's happening. It's fine. This is just where we're at right now. But I'm just pointing out that or where we can go to, if you want to put it that way. So the next few little notes, we've only got 2 minutes to go. So solitude is necessary. Once again, going back to that. Be realistic about our capabilities. Okay, don't get off with the fairies and think I'm a great meditator if we're not. Just be really honest to ourselves of where we're at. But also don't put yourself down. And maybe we can take great inspiration from the stories of the great masters throughout the ages and how their ability to concentrate. The Buddha, for instance, as well as the other masters from the different traditions. Be inspired by that. Don't be downhearted that you yourself haven't achieved that yet. You can still take care of your business in your everyday life. Of course, do that. The things that you have to do, such as cleaning your teeth, going to the toilet, eating food, drinking water, all of these things. And if you're working or if you're studying, still take care of business, but try to keep a calm, peaceful mind when you're doing this. Your education as well, of course. Genuine aspiration. In other words, have pure intention to practice this, pure aspiration to practice this. Don't just do it just to escape from our difficulties in the world, our suffering. That's the wrong intention to practice Dharma, is to escape. We need to face reality. And then the last little bit says pure intention is very important. And it's also really good if we can have virtuous friends, people that we can ask about the Dharma, people that we can practice with, whether that's these days online or in person as well. The more we practice together, the more we inspire each other as well, which is really good. Okie dokie. So I think that's it for now. And I rejoice in your merits. I'm glad that it didn't cut out again. And because I'm still not on blue, the light, it's still unstable, apparently. All right. So study well, practice well, be kind to yourself always. Okay. I rejoice in your merits and goodness. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Dharmaya.